Checkity check, check, check. I think it's the output. Check, check, check.
Check, check, check. Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're just about to get started with this week's episode. Less than 10 minutes left. While you got a couple of minutes here, why don't you go check out otheanthem.com. It's where you can find everything Oh The Anthem, including the merch store, the podcast, and all of the videos. Open up a new tab.
Anchor.fm/Oh The Anthem is the place where you can get direct links to all the podcatchers you use to listen to our show every week.
Did you know we record every episode live on Facebook? Of course you do. But make sure that you're liking the page and turning on notifications so you get notified when we go live.
We make a ton of video content between the podcast, the short films, Heretics. YouTube.com/Oh The Anthem is the place for it all.
And of course you can find me on any social network at Robert N. Cheek.
And me at LegendCB5.
And you can find the podcast at Oh The Anthem on all your social networks.
The story starts, interestingly enough, with Donald Trump and John Kelly, when he was chief of staff, going to Arlington to visit the grave of John Kelly's son, Robert, who had died in war. And the two of them are standing over the gravestone, and they're looking down. And Trump says, and I don't want to get this wrong, so I'm going to look for the exact words, "What was in it for him?" To which apparently John Kelly sort of thought maybe Trump was being like esoteric or vague about the meanings of casualty in war and what does it all mean to this thing. Not in the way that he was selfishly thinking, what would be in it for somebody to die for this country? Yeah. And once Kelly sort of realized that the worst fears of the president were realized, he was as disgusted as he should have been at that. I'm honestly shocked that Kelly didn't punch him right there.
Well, I mean, obviously,
it's such a stunning statement that I think you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, oh, he didn't mean that, you know?
Well, it's that thing where it's like, if a sitting president is leaning over to you and saying, "What was in it for him?" I would take from that. If I leaned over and said that to a veteran, I would say that I would hope they take that meaning to be, we need to do something good with this republic. We need to do the hard work right now because he went and he died to protect this country. Yeah. And we need to make it worth it for that kind of sacrifice. But that's not what he meant. What he meant was, hey, my name's President Bone Spurs, and I am completely a narcissistic, selfish person who would not go sacrifice myself for anyone, let alone the ideals of a country.
Right.
So what's in it for him to go and die for that? And to say that to the father of the dead person who is also in your administration. And by the way, knowing the dates of all this that happened, Kelly continued to serve in the administration after that discussion.
I think that what's important to note here is that we may have arguments, by we I mean the people of America, may have arguments about whether or not wars are worthy to be sending people towards, like whether Iraq or Afghanistan was a worthy cause to have troops die for. We have arguments as to whether or not the size of the military should be brought down, that there should be less troops effectively. Mm-hmm.
I want to get into our
treason corner.
I was gonna say, can we call it that? It essentially is, right?
I mean, it's the problem is it's either treason or stupidity to a level we've never quite seen before. So which one do you want to admit to?
Let's modify our previous game. Now let's play dumb or treason. And I don't know you want to be on either side of that, but who are we talking about, Corey?
So Trump, as always. Who else would we be talking about with our treason questions? So word came out that it was a New York Times piece talking about how Vladimir Putin had put bounties on American soldiers through intermediaries. Specifically, Taliban fighters in Afghanistan were seen with $500,000 in American dollars in like their headquarters or whatever it was, and the soldiers who found it very odd because it's unusual that American money would be there.
Wait. Oh, that's the wrong one. Unless we gave it to them.
Well, yeah,
we gave them the 500,000. Now that explains
something tells
it,
me
but
it's not leftover from when Clinton or Bush Sr. were giving it to Bin Laden. I think
right.
This is a new income stream for them. And it turns out that Putin apparently was doing this. It's not for sure, but all intelligence sources are kind of pushing to this. And it made it to the presidential briefing for his twice weekly security briefing and stuff like that. So Trump either heard it and decided that Putin offering to pay to kill American soldiers is no big deal, or he didn't hear it and his staff didn't think that he was capable of handling that, or that, there wasn't enough here to go off of, at which point they don't know what needs to be brought to the president. And at that point, he has just filled his staff with the dumbest people who have ever been in the executive branch in the history of the office. Like,
or
there's
just
one
guys-
of the two. It'd be like if on September 9th, somebody came up to, like was sitting in the corner going like, heard rumors about planes into buildings, but I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Should I bring it up or not? Like,
They did bring it up to Bush, though.
I know, but I'm saying like at least they brought it up.
They knew.
Yeah,
yes, they knew to bring it to him.
And what Bush and the team did at that point was say, I don't see enough to draw a direct connection to one specific event. So I'm not shutting down airplane travel across the country because we don't know what we're talking about here. And if we do that, then they're just going to postpone. And we have to figure out more about it. But
nobody was looking at Bush and also saying he's not very happy today. Today's not a good bad news day.
Yeah.
That rally that he just had didn't work out.
Right.
So we need to find something else to boost his spirits. Then we can give him the bad news.
Yeah. I mean, like part of being president in my mind, if I imagined myself being president or me being governor or mayor or anything like this, I think about all the bad news I'm going to get all the time and how I have to be able to take this bad news and direct people, a group of people that are under my employ, to go out there and try and make some sort of change in that that news. We're gonna take this news of Putin and we're going to sanction him, or we're going to say do it again and we'll murder you, or whatever you feel like is the appropriate response for Putin threatening to kill soldiers.
He's got the PP tape.
I know. This is the problem with having a president who's in his pocket. That's the whole thing about the Manchurian Candidate. Yes, I'm.
And by the way, that's the understated part of the Manchurian Candidate is the decisions he don't make sense. Yeah. Everyone's around him looking like, why is he doing this?
Yeah.
Because he's a Manchurian Candidate.
Not only that, further, there were how many fucking Benghazi things in the like House and the Senate? Yeah,
11
like
hearings.
And every single one of them was about when did she know it? When did she hear? What did she do? How did Hillary... This week on the The Anthem podcast, we have Bob Woodward's new book, and boy, is it a doozy. We also have some news out of here in California. two LA sheriffs shot, Newsom and Trump dealing with the fires raging out of control out here in California. We'll get into all that, as well as Homeland Security acting Chad Wolf out there is not reporting on the Russia interference going on in this election. Susan Collins, Jared Kushner, Proud Boys in Portland, and oh yeah, don't forget, For Your Consideration and Sports Ball. It's a loaded show. You're not going to want to miss it. Come join us right now here at the The Anthem Podcast. I have a one-word title for Bob Woodward's next Trump book. Why? This is Corey, and this is the Anthem Podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Welcome to episode 336 of the Anthem Podcast, coming to you from the hashtag OTA LA studios high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, and let's start right there with Mr. Woodward and his new work. Had unprecedented access to Trump for this whole thing. Did 18 interviews with him, all of which were apparently recorded, and we heard some of that after our show last week.
Well, we heard all of that after our show last week.
Well, I mean, there's still some stuff that's in the book, so we don't know exactly what the entirety of what is out there, but I'm excited to hear more because there is clearly a lot already based off of what we have.
Yeah, so let me put this to you. Let's say I was well known for taking down, I don't know, a presidential administration.
Yeah.
Forcing someone who was about to be impeached to leave office. Would you, as the sitting president, sit down for a bear-all interview with me?
No.
That being said, as you pointed out, every president has basically had a book done by Bob Woodward.
Right.
And in fact, this president has had a book done by Bob Woodward.
He sure did.
Just to be clear, not this book. There was another book.
Not the one that you should buy, because I'm sure it's going to be good.
So why don't you...
My shilling is not for Rob alone. From time to time, I'll slum it and do for Bob Woodward, too. I mean,
I don't think he needs our help. What was your explanation?
They're going to look at the book sales and be like, wow, it really went up all of a sudden. It's almost like a Robert N. Cheek novel.
Can you, for the people, give a recap of how you explained it to me in the pre-show of a Bob Woodward interview?
Yeah, so Bob Woodward at this point, after he broke the biggest piece of journalism there ever was with the Watergate.
Yeah, to be clear, Bob Woodward was part of the Woodward and Bernstein that took down the Nixon administration with Deep Throat and all of that. Now, he was a very young man then, younger than he was portrayed by... I can't remember which one of them is portraying Woodward.
Yeah, I don't either.
In All the President's Men.
I don't want to speculate because I can't remember.
But both of those actors are older than he actually was when he did that. He's been in D.C. a long time.
Yeah, and basically at this point, he's sort of like the type of reporter that people feed good scoops to. Like, he's sort of a good scoop aggregator is like how I like to put it earlier. And there was a story that was on Pod Save America, but a bunch of Obama people who had the Bob Woodward experience once, which is he comes in, he sits down with the press secretary, they bullshit for a little bit, and then eventually he goes like, well, I'm writing a book, and I have all these sources on the record, and I have all these documents here. So if there's anything that you have that would help like illuminate this further, then by all means, I'd love to hear it. But he's basically got the story before he sits down to write it, before, like he has the interview with the president and stuff like that. He more or less has the story he wants. And he's just trying to find the good things trying to find the cracks in the story a little bit. So,
and I believe for his first book, he didn't have access to the president.
In Watergate or
the
first Woodward, the first Trump book. Yeah. So how it had happened there was basically they just let Woodward walk around the West Wing for a little while.
Also, not a great idea.
Weeks. Yeah, like just having one of the best investigative journalists there.
Just
But
like, what
basically-
are you doing in this guy's office? Oh, I was throwing something in the garbage. What are those papers in your briefcase? Oh, those are mine. I brought them in. Well, all right, thanks, Mr. Woodward.
Where does that garbage go specifically? I mean, after it leaves this office, does it go somewhere else, somewhere where someone might be able to intercept it, or?
Well, I don't know. You probably have to talk to the janitor about that, but let me get him for you. He's right down here.
Why don't I take it out for you? I'll take your trash. I'll ask the janitor. I'm just curious how the inner workings of the West Wing are.
That Bob Woodward just really, he's into his job.
He
wants
knows
all the
how to get
details.
to all the angles.
Wait, which director is it that worries about the trash that's in the trash being accurate? Oh man!
Yeah.
A story I heard with the
Sounds like a Fincher thing to me.
it might be
Yeah.
no, it was whoever did the one about Watergate, where he was like, what's in the garbage? And I'm like, oh, we just printed out a bunch of random stuff on inkjet. And he was like, no, they wouldn't have inkjet printers. What I want you to do is to get typographical paper.
I think they did that with the Post and
the
Spielberg,
Post,
right?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
And they were just like, yeah, we got to get mimeograph paper and typograph paper and actually have them type up stories from this week
Right.
that would have gone out on the Post and then crumple them up so you can't read them and put them in the garbage. And like, no one's ever going to see this.
It's amazing, just for people who don't know how Hollywood works. It's amazing how if you pause on like a TV show where they're reading like a newspaper,
Yeah.
the headline will be, mayor indicted on sex charge
Yes,
or whatever.
yeah.
But then if you like look at the article, it'll just be like, Bob is a pretty boy and Bob likes his pony and ponies are fun. And it's just like whatever nonsense.
All
just
work and no
filled-
fun make Jack the
it's-
dull boy.
It can't be like the same exact thing because
Yeah.
it looks obvious, but like it's literally just nonsense where it's like thrown out. You might as well just like in the autocomplete version of this, like you would just hit the middle over and over again in whatever kind of story.
If you've ever built a website and you just drop in a text block and it's like
Lorem
ipsum, yeah, it's like that basically. But there are some directors who do not allow for that. And if
Yeah.
you're reading a paper, they say, what was on the front page of the Washington Post on this day in 1977? Recreate that for me.
It almost seems like they're more prepared than the president of the United States.
Oh, yes. Well,
Hollywood director. What is amazing about this whole thing, though, is that the last time the Woodward book came out, it was bad, and it had a lot of things that the Trump administration didn't want out there. Much like every administration doesn't like whatever book Bob Woodward puts out. Some of them aren't as scandalous as that one, and they still don't like it. So
well, you remember
that goes with the territory.
The Woodward book about Obama's tan suit was not well received by the Obama administration.
Obama threw it in the fireplace. Fuck this book.
That was a great Obama. Was that your Obama?
That's my.
Oh, okay, good.
Don't ever make me do it again. I think it was a one-time thing.
I can do an Obama, but I can only say fuck this book. That's all I can do. Sorry.
So everything needs to lead to that. Just him walking around the West. Fuck this book. In this one in particular.
Also, he needs to be a heavyset white guy. I
For whatever reason.
There's nothing I can do about that either.
I will not do it in blackface, though. Don't make me. There are lines of will not cross. But no, basically, the last one came out and had no quotes from Trump, other than like things that were in, on the news, or like he had a rally and he said something. Like there was no direct interview of Trump in the last book. So Jared Kushner, boy genius, thought that the only way that we could fix whatever problem would come out from this book is having some Trump in it to begin with.
Yeah.
Because then it won't be broken.
Well, I believe we said in a previous episode that it's sad that everyone has learned how you manipulate this presidency. And it looks like Bob Woodward did a little bit of that. Like, what I'm going to do is use whatever quotes I want, and then I'm going to write another book. And of course, they're going to say, no, you're not going to use these quotes out of context. You're going to sit down with 20 hours of interviews with the president and get direct quotes this time. And like, okay, fair enough. Let's do that.
You know what? I would like to have it recorded just because,
I don't want to misquote.
I don't want to get it out of context.
Yeah.
Well, okay, good.
That's absolutely right.
It's about
We should
time.
do that. Yes.
It's about time you take your job seriously. Bob Woodward, what have
Yes.
you ever done?
I don't see your name on any buildings anywhere. There's literally my name's everywhere.
Do you own a casino in Vegas? Yeah, right. Shut the fuck up.
Oh, wait, I forgot. This is Kushner. Do you own low-rent, run-down apartments all over the East Coast? No. My name's not on those either, but I do own them.
I own them through a shell corporation. So there will be a lot that comes out, I'm sure. We're going to release this episode, and everything that had been said already is going to pale in comparison to whatever they held back, because that's how book marketing works.
That's how it works.
But the fact that we got Trump acknowledging way before anyone said anything to us, like prior to shutdowns or anything like that, that it's airborne, that it's not a flu type of situation. Trump even remarked on how many people die from the flu. He's like, it's 20,000 people a year. I never even could have imagined.
Yeah.
And then that's like a 1% problem, but this is like a 5% problem, and like all the stuff that it would have been helpful if we knew ahead of time. And he admitting that he basically tones it down because he doesn't want to be like a source of panic. Which
and most ironic thing, by the way, this guy doesn't want to be a source of panic.
I can understand the logic behind not wanting to be the source of panic, and maybe you don't say everything that you know, but I also maintain that part of the job of president is giving us the absolute most you can tell us based off of what you know for sure. So, like, if I was the president at the time, I know there's just a leap of fancy here, but if I was the president at the time and I got the information that it's airborne and that it's going to spread a lot more than we think that it is, and we're in a real situation here, I think I would try and tell people that in some sort of way. I would say, be careful of where you are, because this disease is showing signs that it might be airborne. So there might be things that we can do, like wear masks, that will help mitigate that spread, but we should also, try and do everything I can to keep people from panicking by giving them information. The problem is that when you don't give people information and they find it out later, then they're angry that you didn't tell us.
Well, and
if I went to Vegas for a weekend and you were just sitting home, just playing games, and then you found out.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm on Warzone now. Robert and Cheek on PS Network. If you want to add me.
But if you just opened up Instagram and you saw me in Vegas in a non-COVID time,
sure, yes,
you'd just be like, "Hey, what the fuck?
The fuck, man?
Can't even mention it to me." Like, Rob is now angry at me because I didn't tell him about it.
Yeah.
If I told him ahead of time, I was like, "Listen, I'm going to Vegas, but you can come if you want, but I'm really serious about I just want to lock myself away and not deal with anything. So if you're okay with me literally putting myself in the corner and not talking to you for 3 days, then you're welcome to come." And then it would have been up to you whether or not you
listen. Nobody puts Corey in a corner. All right, only he can do that. But this president infamously doesn't want to cause a panic. That's why he would never show the impact of a hurricane actually going much further than anyone predicted it would.
Right. He certainly wouldn't change it with a Sharpie to illustrate exactly.
He wouldn't say things like MS-13 moving in next door, like the burning of.
Well, that was Matt Gaetz, but that was his convention.
His RNC that he controlled everything.
The Donald Trump convention that happened.
Yeah.
Brought to you by the RNC.
Yes. He wouldn't,
sponsored by Hostess.
He wouldn't say that Antifa was coming to burn down your houses. He certainly wouldn't accuse ancillarily Antifa of starting wildfires all across the coast.
Well, not beyond even that. It's not like he doesn't want to cause a panic, but he will also allow people who live in places that didn't vote for him to live in some sort of form of panic. Because
I
don't know if you guys noticed where you are in the country, but when I looked out last week at the sky, it looked like a hellscape of unlikely proportion. And I live in downtown Los Angeles, which is far enough away from the fires, but chances are that if you lived anywhere west of the Mississippi, you probably saw a little bit of the smoke, because apparently it was in Dallas too. So if you're anywhere west of Dallas, you probably have some sort of smoky haze in your sky, and it's because all of California is literally on fire right now.
I will say that, admittedly, on Sunday, I did not leave my apartment. I was playing Warzone literally all day, so I can't say anything about Sunday. But Friday, Saturday, and then today, it was very weird to get in the shower in the morning, and usually I have, bright sunshine coming in my window, and I'm very upset about it, because who wants to be up at an ungodly hour like, 10 a.m.? And then it was weird because I got in and I'm like, whoa, what time is it?
It's nighttime.
Yeah, it's it's not quite night, but twilighty, and just I open up the blinds to peek out because I have a window in my shower because architects, and I look out and I'm like, oh man. Yeah, it's just so cloudy. And someone told me today, they're like, oh, you're getting a taste of L.A. in the 90s. This is just what it was. It was
Yeah.
hazy every day.
People, for all the talk of climate change and how real it is, you can look at pictures of New York from the 70s or LA from the 80s and 90s and see things that don't look anything like those places. You remember at the very beginning of when everyone was locked down and there were still cars on the road, but we were locked down, and LA had the cleanest air in the country or in the world.
Yeah.
It looked like it. You could look in the sky and just see like, the perfect blue sky and everything like that. And it's really,
and it's not been horrible here since we've moved here, but it was definitely a difference.
But the problem is that, like we're still dealing with the wildfires. And last week, there was also talk that perhaps the evil Santa Ana winds might be picking up, and that was the last thing we needed at that moment. It's almost like too many catastrophes. That's the problem. Like, if Trump was trying to downplay his one catastrophe, then maybe we could understand his logic. But he's downplaying multiple catastrophes all at the same time, which makes it very difficult to.
Well, luckily, Corey, Gavin Newsom is on it. Gavin Newsom, of course, our lovely governor who always looks like he is sewn into the finest suit. Now you'll see.
I didn't know Brooks Brothers did a fire edition, but
you'll see in the image that I picked for him for our show today that he actually is not wearing a suit because he wants the people in the fire zone to know he's taking this very seriously.
Yeah.
So he looks amazing, but no tie.
To be fair, that was a white shirt before he ventured into the forest. So it was a brand new crisp white shirt, and that's what happens. It's like
it's bad out there. So
I basically looking at him in this picture, holding up the paper, going like, "I think I have the black lung, Pop."
If there was an American governor who would look at Zoolander for inspiration, it would be Gavin
Derek.
Newsom.
You were in those mines for one day.
So the paper that he's holding up is actually a bill changing the state requirements for being a firefighter. Now, I think we've talked about this before, maybe last year.
Yeah, during last fire season?
When the Santa Ana's kicked up and the fires got really bad. But in California, we use a largely, we can't call them slave labor because they do make like 70 cents an hour, but mostly slave labor fire force, which is made up of prison inmates from across the state, 70 to 100,000 of them who go out and fight fires for 77 cents an hour.
Right.
And then once they get out of prison, cannot become firefighters because they have a criminal record. Well, this paper that you see Gavin Newsom holding up is an official change to state policy, which says we still are keeping the felony conviction issue, but if you served as a firefighter for more than one fire season, then you can actually get an accommodation to apply to be a firefighter.
See, I thought there was an expungement that was going on there too.
Yes, but the expungement is based on being a firefighter. So if you murder people and then just do your straight time, you can't expunge it and then become a firefighter.
But I'm saying, I feel like, to me, what I would like about this more is that if the expungement came with the actual record going away, you did the time, you know what you did, you have to live with it. But if it's something petty,
which most of these guys are in for drug possession, probably.
I mean, if it's like, you had 2 pounds of pot in your car and you're only allowed to have 1.91 pounds of pot in your car.
Which, by the way, is not far apart in California.
You criminal asshole. Like, maybe I did the time and I'm okay with that. Like, I've learned not to carry around
too much pot
at one time.
Yeah, it's not that you have it. It's how much you have.
I've learned the lesson of how much I will carry at any point. I'll just do it one joint at a time.
Now, wait. Don't carry the scale because the scale's an accelerator, which makes you seem like distribution.
Right.
So you can't weigh it to be sure. You got to eyeball your ounces and know how many you have.
But just make sure you're short.
Yes.
No matter what. Just
always
make sure
be
you're
short. Yeah.
And maybe even accommodate for a scale that's not properly measured.
Yeah, a cop with a heavy thumb that's just leaning down on the scale.
Just putting it down.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's 50 pounds of pot. It's literally one joint.
Well, here's the problem, Corey, is you are looking for justice. And there is no justice in this. This is, we are commodifying your body, and you were a good firefighter, and we'd like to commodify your body further. So
right, but I mean, so to me, I think that there's an area of criminal justice so far which has been left unexplored, which is you did something bad, so you're punished.
Yep.
But if you do something good, perhaps the punishment can be lifted a little bit, or to an extent. Depends on, the scale of what's going on here. But I'm saying, like, if you're going out there and you're fighting fires for California and the thing you had on your record was a drug charge, I'd be fine with, if say you're 3 years into your 4-year sentence or something like that, like, okay, you can go after the fire is done and we're going to expunge the drug rest.
Okay.
Like, you served your time, you know what you did. This doesn't have to be on your record because you did something heroic, Like,
let me give you a thought experiment.
Much like Sully should be allowed to get away with a petty crime because he saved so many people from the airplane crash in the Hudson.
Do you know, he's got to be driving drunk all the time. A cop pulls him over and he's like, "Are you Sully?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're a pilot." He's like, let me be honest with you, I've piloted a plane way worse than this. And the cops are just like, "I'm gonna let you go, man. I believe you." And hero.
The car's having a little bit of trouble because I got hit by a gray goose.
Okay, wait. Thought experiment. Here.
What can Sully get away with?
Is there no? Is there
First
a
of all,
limit?
I'm trying to put myself in the mind of the audience, going like, "Wait, who the fuck was Sully again?"
Yes, a guy who
have we
got hit
filled
by
in the story enough?
hit
Like,
by
do people
his
remember?
plane got hit. He landed in the water. Portrayed by Tom Hanks.
It basically happened 1 million years ago, or like 6 years ago in like real person time.
Yeah, time has no meaning anymore. But here, thought experiment. Do you know who Mumia Abdul-Jamal is?
Not by name.
One of the founders of the, Crips or Bloods, one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Serving 4 life sentences for murder.
Right.
Although didn't pull the trigger himself, but a contract style murder.
Yeah.
Gangland murders.
Yeah.
Since
he's probably getting the what do you call it, the
3 strikes.
or like the
his thing is 3
Don
strikes.
policy, or like a lot of
RICO.
states have.
Yeah,
No, not even the RICO part. There is like in certain states they have like the Don policy, where if you're the head of a criminal syndicate beyond RICO, they can get you on things that you ordered.
Yeah, I think it was either RICO or was that. He didn't pull the trigger, but he's serving life for murders that were done at his command.
Right.
So, nonetheless, his name wasn't Mumia Abdul-Jamal when he went into prison. It was whatever his birth name was.
Mm-hmm.
Converted to Islam, became an absolutist about peace and no violence. And it is estimated that 40,000 people have left the gang lifestyle because of what his work.
Yeah.
Does he deserve, at 60 years of age, to be released from prison due to his good works against what happened? Now, again, didn't pull the trigger himself, may have ordered a killing, didn't pull the trigger himself, and now has reformed not only himself, but saved 40,000 plus young men from street gang violence.
See, here's the problem, I think, with that logic, though. Because to me, the taking of a life in a first degree murder type of sense, and the you had a direct impact in the murder.
A drug dealer got killed who was your enemy drug dealer.
Right,
You're a
but I'm
drug
saying-
dealer, he's a drug dealer, you got killed.
Yeah, I get. Just because the person is a drug dealer that you killed doesn't mean that they're not a human being. So my problem is that
We should talk to the president about this.
I wouldn't. Well, clearly, I would not want to be responsible for letting somebody off the hook per se, even if they've been doing good work. Because at the end of the day, there's a family who's without somebody.
Okay.
And to me, I know there's people who murder and don't spend life in jail, but to me, there's sort of a properness to it that the rest of your life is taken away from you because you took somebody else's.
Okay.
Like
short aside then on that thought. What if you're a drug dealer who is dealing in methamphetamine or pills or heroin? Does your same, hey, listen, you got caught with 40 grams of methamphetamine, but you're fighting fires and we should let you go and expunge it. Does that still stand?
The difference there becomes the personal use versus intent to distribute.
Yeah.
Like, because, one of the things I read a lot about in the Contrace Task Force trial, because nobody died.
No.
Nobody, Wayne Jenkins didn't shoot somebody, which makes it different than other police stories that we deal with. I mean, like he didn't
caused accidents that.
Well, yeah, but
was
I'm
a
saying
loss of
he didn't shoot and kill somebody like we have seen in videos of police.
Right, but what?
Of recent vintage, Drove,
caused a driving accident that cost a life, which is almost like ordering someone's death. An enemy's death.
Those they didn't die though. But so
I thought the guy in the car
there
died.
was a criminal syndicate that like was part of the bigger gun trace task force trial, and they did a lot of opiates and heroin and stuff like that. And I think they said that 58 people died from things from their sources, basically. Sure. To me, if you're getting to a body count like that, then the same rules apply as if you actually pulled the trigger to an extent. To me,
but
because
Mumia's body count is 4.
Right.
So 4? Where are we drawing the line here?
1.
So one life. That's too much?
I'm not giving up on murder. I'm not talking down on murder.
It's a strong stance. I'm just looking for I'm looking for the stance and where the good versus the bad is.
I mean, I think that there, within everyone's mind, there's some sort of delineation between crimes that are so serious that there's no I'm sorry for, and then like what could you?
Okay, one more.
Because
side.
I mean, like you could hypothetically argue too that a lot of people in the financial collapse caused a lot of crime.
Yes.
Right, and that their actions might have led to deaths and stuff like that. But you can't. It's harder to tie a direct action from somebody that was taken there. Like it's not like.
Bernard, what's his name? Ponzi scheme guy?
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
2 suicides based on people losing their life to his Ponzi scheme.
Yes, and terrible and tragic, but also if somebody else, like we're in that very difficult territory of that one case that was a couple years ago where the guy killed himself, but at the behest of the woman who was like telling him to do it, basically.
Make sure you check out the Everyman movie review of I Love You, Now Die, the Michelle Dockery, I think, story.
Yeah.
No, Michelle Dockery is an actress. Sorry, Michelle Dockery. That you. Michelle something out of Massachusetts. But yeah, it was via text. She was ordering him to get back in the car, and he killed himself.
Right. And I mean, like, if
it's way more complicated.
If that was what was happening, then you could make a different argument for it. But if somebody decides to do something on their own, I don't necessarily... Like, even though if you're in awful financial straits and you're ruined, like, obviously that would be a reason to kill oneself. Mm-hmm. And that situation happened because of the Ponzi scheme that they were a part of. But at the same time, they chose to make that action.
But that drug addict chose to take the drugs. No one forced them to.
Yeah, but the drug dealer got remuneration for providing a product that might possibly kill them.
Bernie got remuneration for the Ponzi scheme. He has $1 billion that's never been found.
Right, but he was also... So his crime was the financial impropriety of it all. Mm-hmm. The fact that he set up a system and duped people into it.
Okay. I have one more side, because I think you...
But I'm saying, like, I get where you're coming from with this whole thing, and, like, at what point do we justify a life is lost? But I think that there has to be more of a direct action, too, and even though... It would be great if we could just start locking Wall Street people up on murder charges that they didn't actually physically commit.
We absolutely should start doing
that. I don't. At the same time, it's so loose that I wouldn't want to go down that primrose path for where it would end other legal justice.
Fair enough.
If I get onto the highway and I think I have enough time to get in front of the car who's in the lane. And I cut them off a little bit, and they slam on the brakes.
Yeah.
And 5 cars back, because everyone was slamming on the brakes, there's a fatal accident. Yeah. Is it my fault because I cut somebody off? I still don't think that I had enough acknowledgement of what could potentially go wrong to say that I would be liable for that.
And you probably would.
Under the same logic of I ripped off a bunch of people in the financial collapse, and I never did any time for it. Yeah. You can't really tie one of those things to the other without with knowledge beforehand.
One last part.
Yeah.
I think you assumed because I said he was born with a name and he changed his name to Mumia Abdul Jamal. Mm-hmm. You assumed he was black, but he joined the Nation of Islam. Is that fair to say?
I mean, that was a clue that would make me think that. I honestly didn't start to think about who he was. Like,
let me just clarify that as an experiment and just say, what if he was white? Does that change your answer?
No.
Okay. I'm trying to draw lines between you and the president, and I mean, clearly that would be a different thing.
We started with Bob Woodward, and we're here, so we're trying to redefine what
we had moved on to Newsom and Newsom meeting. And really, this transition is because Newsom signed a bill that would allow people who had been firefighters and have minor crimes to have those crimes expunged. Essentially, not expunged, just generally speaking, but if you apply to be a firefighter,
For the purposes of being a firefighter.
we'll expunge that crime.
Yeah.
Yeah. But only to, continue to make your body worthwhile to the state and to our system.
Right.
If you wanted to go get a job at, I don't know, McDonald's, no, we're not going to expunge it for you. And that was met by also Trump, not to just continue talking about him, but hey, it's America in 2020, visiting the state just today and meeting with Newsom. And Corey was not happy about how the governor reacted. I thought that the governor showed remarkable pluck in saying exactly what he had to say to try and get a reaction from Trump, a positive reaction, where he said, hey, land management, 70% of the land that forest land in California is actually Bureau of Land Management. It's federal land, so we can only do so much about that. But we want to work with the BLM. That's Bureau of Land Management, not Black Lives Matter, in order to do better management practices. We need money for that, and thank you for marking it. And then he said something about we can disagree about the climate science, and then went into a concession to Trump that you were not happy about.
I'm just generally not. So Newsom in particular doesn't seem like the type to take shots. Garcetti is more of a shot taker than Newsom is. I think Garcetti was saying today that, well, Trump's responsible for thousands of people in Los Angeles who died because he didn't tell people the information that Bob Woodward had months ago. I think if this was a Garcetti Trump situation, it might have been a little bit different. I still wouldn't have liked the result, but I'm thinking it's a little bit different. And there's this kowtowing of people to Trump because he is the president.
Yeah.
That kind of bothers me because if you're going to call him a fucking asshole behind his back, you got to do it to his face too, And while Newsom isn't the type of person who's taking shots at Trump, I still feel like you remember when Pew got voted in the same election that Trump did?
Yes.
And Trump went to the Army-Navy game before inauguration, and Pew wrote him a letter and met him for a couple seconds and gave him a letter talking about
the Army-Navy game,
all the things that Baltimore needed right now and stuff like that.
Game played at M&T Bank Stadium in
Baltimore,
which is she didn't travel to Annapolis.
No. But it was at M&T, and then she. But I still remember the video. He's walking through the halls, and this is before he's even officially president.
Yeah.
But she meets him, and she's just I'm so privileged and honored for the moment to step in front of you, and I hope you take this letter with the graciousness that a genius like you deserves, or whatever, all this fucking sloppy, pandering to him and stuff like that. And it was just disgusting. And it was awful. And I would rather somebody walk up and just be like, hey, we're completely fucking deserted here and we could use a lot of help. And nobody has helped us so far. You could be the person who helps us. So please help us. That is at least making the statement with the truth of the situation behind it.
Do you think that works?
I mean, I feel like Trump wants to be adorned, but I think that there is a level to. I think the people who stick around Trump's orbit the longest figure out how to adorn him in a way that also gets the person's. I think Newsom would have been better off per se sitting down with Trump and being hitting the land management thing about how this is mostly national forest, which it is. In LA, it's Angeles National Forest, which is on fire. I think he would have been better off just sitting there going you could leave an unprecedented legacy unlike anything else in this country if you could figure out a way to solve this problem.
I think you have more
faith. Put
it
on him to rise to the level, because it would be some level of people working would have to happen at that point, because Trump wouldn't be able to sit on TV hearing somebody say you're the only one who can fix this and then not do nothing. He has to do something at the very least. But and I imagine that many of those things that would be done would be things that would be high on the checklist of Gavin Newsom, because they are in the best interest of not only California but America as a whole.
What's the difference between what he did and that, though?
The sniveling. I didn't like the sniveling. I like the and don't get me wrong. I am not one to speak because I stutter from time to time. I have the ADHD, so it's like I'm randomly grabbing words that are coming in front of my face. Like I know that I sound sniveling too from time to time. And I know how that can play. But at the same time, like he's got I don't respect you if you're like all the people who are just like, well, if I was, Churchill, I would have stood up to Hitler. It's like, no, you fucking wouldn't have. Like,
Yeah.
there's only a certain number of these people who literally will just do what they feel all the time. Like, the reason why we adorn these people so much is because they have a legacy of just doing what they wrote. Teddy Roosevelt, Churchill, like these people, Hitler, for as bad as his outcomes were, but still had the ability to say to people that they didn't like, hey, I don't like you, and it's for this particular reason, and I'm not wrong for it, and fuck you. Like,
But as strong as Churchill was, he showed deference to the Queen. He disagreed with her greatly.
Yeah.
And he thought she was a child and that she should leave the governing to him.
Yeah.
But he showed deference to her.
But she was literally more capable of handling the job of just being queen, which requires no actual work.
Yeah.
Than Trump is in this situation.
So
your best hope in this situation, in my mind, your best hope is that Trump turns from this moment and goes, they're going to ask me about this in a week, and I don't want to look like we didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. So he turns to a certain group of people and says, get this
Handle
done.
This?
Yeah. And I think that's more likely to happen if you raise the stakes on him and make him answer to it live. Because this is going to be a moment in the debate. I can already see it because Biden's just building up to this. He's got a half dozen of these sitting in his pocket where he's going to look at Trump and he's going to be like, at this moment right now, you could pledge to spend just a measly $10 million and completely change the way that we do this. You could be one of the great leaders you want to be. You could be and then at that moment, Trump's going to be like, well, of course, I've already done that. Jared Kushner's in the works of doing it right now. And then we find out he's making calls frantically back. It's bound to happen. There's no way to avoid it because there's no way you can set up a high stakes, if you're of the mind, it's just like if you went to a football player, it's just like, hey, would you do anything to win a Super Bowl? And it's just like, fuck yeah, I would. Like, there's a competitiveness in there. There's like an id that operates within the mind of people like Trump that would not want to look like an idiot if you raise the stakes on him. He wants to look like he's prepared for that moment in some way.
My question is,
so rather than like, oh, please, Mr. President, bless us with your ever-loving mercy.
What would you do if you were put in Trump's presence?
What would I do?
Yeah.
And I wanted him to stop the fires?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a problem with me and the governor of California because nobody knows who the fuck I am.
What if you were the governor of California?
If I was the governor of California, I would say, hey, you got a really big problem. All these forests that are on fire are in your land mostly. And we're trying desperately to fix this for you because it's, we're here, we're on the ground, we know how it works. We've been battling forest fires for a long time. Like we have the knowledge to do this. Mm-hmm. Now is your opportunity to join the greats, to be amongst the best presidents who ever lived. And I would build that part up.
Okay.
And I would be like, do you understand that if these fires go out, you're going to be remembered forever for that? Lincoln freed the slaves. You put out the fires. And I would just build on his ego and his oh, I need to do this and everything like that. The sniveling, people snivel to him all the time. People used to walk up to him on the street. I'm sure.
Yeah.
He's just leaving the plaza. It's 1982. Whatever the case is. He's walking. Oh my God, Mr. Trump. I can't believe I don't have my autograph book with me here at this moment. I can't believe you're here. I'll tell them about it later. They'll never believe you. Whatever. He moves on doing jerk things. But if somebody came to him and it was just like, well, the only person who could pull off an economic comeback of this type is Donald Trump, then he would just be like, yeah, I've been working on it. He'd want to take credit for that shit. He's not smart. He's not
earlier.
I could give you a detailed analysis of how to get what you want from a smart version of Trump. Mm-hmm. But that takes a lot more craft work and it takes a lot more setting the scene and stuff like that. I feel confident that if I was Newsom put in that moment, I could handle that thing better than he did. because it was too much like, oh, please, please, Mr. Trump, we need you. It's your problem, but we need you. And I'm not going to talk about climate change because I know you want to fucking hear it. And
earlier this episode,
yeah,
we said we figured out how to manipulate the president to do what we want.
Yeah.
Do you not think that Gavin Newsom has paid a lot of people a lot of money to figure out how to present the argument?
No, because yes. So yes, he has. He has those people. I'm sure they're smart. I also think that alarming number of them are pussies who just do whatever Newsom tells them to do. Like, he's put people in place to be not yes men, but like the ones who like help make the decisions that he makes the reality. Like those people will argue a little bit, but will eventually go like, well, the governor said it. Like, he's made a decision. We just got to live with it. You know?
Okay.
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like Newsom for to help him being sewn into his perfectly crafted suits had his balls removed as part of the speeding up process, because he doesn't like what the fuck does he care? Like, he clearly doesn't want to get things done, because when in the world have you ever seen somebody sniveling to Trump get something done?
All the time.
No, Trump wants a smart snivel. He wants somebody who
Mike Pompeo.
He wants a dynamic,
the majority leader in the Senate.
Believe me, McConnell knows what game Trump is playing. That's why he stays out of it most of the time. That's why the only time you ever hear from McConnell is him going like, well, you know, it's never been anything like the unprecedented financial success that we've had under this president. He's just fucking lying out there, putting out the same thing. He doesn't want to go out on news every week talking these lies. He just spreads them out every once in a while. RNC, yeah, I'll do 2 minutes.
Okay.
Talk about how great Trump is. Like,
well, for anybody who thought that Corey had shifted away from the alt-right,
calling Newsom a pussy.
He's shifted to I don't know. Is that you go so far right that you end up on the far left? Is that what's happened now? You're attacking the Democratic governor of California from the left for not being strong enough.
I'm just tired of pussies. I don't know how else to put it. I'm so sick and tired of it, because like,
you thought there was one revolutionary on this show. You were right. It ain't the one you thought though. Good Lord.
Speaking of which,
well, no, I know what I was going to say. Speaking of guys who are in revolution, and another thing, the tie into all of this is, you know, Trump has been saying from the RNC onward about how dangerous the job of police officers is.
Yeah.
Now, it's actually never been safer to be a police officer than it is right now. It's actually much more difficult and much more dangerous to be a, FedEx driver, pizza delivery person, garbage man, coal miner. There are many jobs that don't pay very much.
Yeah.
That it's more dangerous than. But as you probably have heard this week, over the weekend, 2 LA sheriff's deputies were shot. They were ambushed, if you want to call it ambushing, by a man with a gun. I don't like to call it ambushing, because what they were doing is what you often see in LA, which is 2 people sitting in a car doing basically nothing outside of a metro stop. Okay. And they were described in the news as a mother of a young child and a young man just starting out his career. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Both of whom participated, by the way, in the rioting that occurred earlier this year in the George Floyd protests. Both of whom had signed up and have been officers for more than 18 months. And I would assume both of whom live by the credo of the LA Sheriff's Department, which is beat first and then take a statement later.
Well, hold on. Let me state something here first.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, and this is part of my hatred of what's going on with the police right now, nobody deserves to be shot for no good reason. Nobody in this country for any there is no justification for walking up to a car and just opening fire on somebody. And if it was 2 drug dealers doing it, I would be just as angry about it. There is no justification that one has to walk up and do this sort of thing.
So you want to be British?
I mean, less gun death? Sure.
No. I mean, you would like to be a citizen of the British Crown. You want us to be colonies of the British Empire.
No.
Because
I want King George just pushing me around with no guns around, or what are we?
No, because you don't think there's never a situation in which you can be oppressed so much that you then use guns as an answer to that situation.
I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm saying I understand how it could rise to this level where somebody feels like they need to do something, but as soon as you've made that decision, regardless of anything, as soon as you've made the decision that you're going to shoot somebody and then go forward with the act of actually shooting somebody, you have crossed a line that is beyond the, was the beatings worth it or something like that. I get where you're coming from with this, and I get why, in the cops' understanding of the situation, it's a war on police. Yeah, where people are just going to start picking off people all the time. Yeah,
almost as if they were police officers and we were members of the public.
My problem more than anything is that, and I've been getting more keen onto some of these things just by watching police corruption elsewhere, and it's always amazing how it happens. But the LA County Sheriff's Department put up on Twitter, the first tweet was, the moments ago, two of our sheriff deputies were shot in Compton, transported to a local hospital, blah, 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 blah. Update, 1 male, 1 female, critical condition, undergoing surgery, blah, blah, blah. Suspect is still at large. Finally, they have a video, which is a video of a phone that is taking a video of the security camera.
Yes. This image that people can see on the screen right
now. Which
of
is
an unknown person walking
Which is a great cop tactic for, I don't want to show you the original piece of, because clearly this video goes longer than just this moment right here, but this looks really bad. Yeah. For the kid who shot into, and looks like a kid too. Yep. I don't know how old this person is, but
they can't tell gender, they can't tell age based on the video. So
yeah, but I mean, it looks like their head is just tall enough to reach over top the window. Yep. So maybe it's a really short person, but
could be a woman, could be a really short person,
looks
could be a teenager.
Yeah. Here's the part where I'm starting. This is the part where I have problems with this situation. Okay. And we don't know a lot, so I really don't want to get deep into like the motivation of the shooter or anything like that, because we don't know that shit. We don't know any of this right now. It could have that kid might have been arrested by these two cops, and he saw this moment as the time to get retribution.
Might be personal.
I don't know. I don't know anything, and I don't want to. Even though that sounded like speculation, I don't want to speculate, because it could be something that we don't know about. They could be the stepdad or some sort of weird thing. Again, more speculating when I said I wouldn't do it. But what bothers me is the statements that come next. Okay. So LA County Sheriff said to the protesters blocking the entrance and exit of a hospital emergency room, yelling, "We hope they die," referring to the two LA sheriffs ambushed today. Do not block emergency exits and stuff like that. But this became a huge talking point of like
Rev Club LA.
There were protesters who were like, blocking the entrances and chanting. I saw a video of one person saying, "I hope they die." I don't know if you saw it differently. Did you see some massive wave of people?
I follow Rev Club, so
okay. So did you see a massive club of people who were
12, maybe 15
blocking
people?
Entrances and stuff like that,
walking on the sidewalk that crossed in front of entrances?
I mean, this is the problem: is that like, if one person says, "I hope they die," I'm not putting that to a large group of protesters blocking the, there's a lot of. You know how many people still think Freddie Gray died because he hit some bolt in the back of the van by accident? And that story was put out by somebody who knew a cop who knew somebody who knew a cop who knew somebody who knew the medical investigator.
In other words, the Washington Post. That was pushed out by the police union to the news. Just
right. They knew somebody who was involved in the case, and then all of a sudden that becomes a talking point for a while. Or the rough ride, like that was clearly how Freddie died because... that's not clearly how Freddie died. But like,
rough rides are a real thing, though. I went on one of those.
I know, but they realized that. I think the police realized really quickly it's going to be way easier to get one person off for this, i.e., Caesar Goods and the van driver, because there's not a lot of video. They knew immediately how much video there was in the situation.
They control the video.
Yeah, and they knew that he wasn't going to face any punishment for it. So it was better to put the stink on him and make them stop looking at what was going on prior to the drive. To make it so. And that's what people know about Freddie Gray now, what the police put out there to cover their own asses. Yep. This is my problem with this whole situation. right now, where the information is the freshest and people are still trying to figure out exactly what happened, who was involved, and like all the other things that take a little bit of time to work out. It's too early to start making assumptions about any of these things. And of my taste, I don't think that it's right to celebrate this moment, because it's just violence, and the violence begets violence, and at some point we have to walk away from it.
Super important that you say that, because violence does beget violence.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that this must be the first incident of violence against people of color in the city of LA, and that's why we have to be worried about more violence that would come of this.
Believe me, I understand where you're coming from,
Mm-hmm.
but I am of the mind, and you know what? Honestly, it's not it's all of our fight. Mm-hmm. The systematic racism that lives within our society and stuff like that. It's part of all of us to fix it.
Yeah.
But I would rather listen to what the people who are on the ground fighting the hardest, who are at the front of the movement, who are saying that we don't want more violence.
Who's saying that?
What?
Who's saying that? Because the 12 to 15 people that were outside the hospital are literally on the front line fighting this fight every single day. This is their life. Their life is fighting this fight.
There are multiple factions within the fight.
So you're citing one of the factions of the movement.
The large majority of the people who are out there protesting every day, who would like there to be a change to policing. Because
so you're looking at the Gandhi to the Tamil Tigers that are marching, or the Martin Luther King to the Malcolm X's that are marching. Because again, I've made this argument so many times. I've been making it since 2000 for the last 6 years.
Hold on.
No, because the point is, it's easy to say. Most of people say that we should do it this way, and you're right. Most people do say that, but the movement makes no progress whatsoever without the more violent aspects of it. Gandhi would be no one if the Tamil Tigers hadn't been bombing and shooting and assassinating people. And Martin Luther King would have accomplished nothing if the Weather Underground, if Malcolm X, if more violent people weren't willing to take violence to the police. That is a fact. It is a fact. And you can't argue against it. And you can say, yes, most people want to be calm and be nonviolent.
No, because I will argue specifically on King that he would put himself in situations that would create violence based off the actions of the other people. That was an important part of his whole philosophy here. He knew that there was going to be violence. Yes. He knew that he was stepping into the moment where he was going to get beat. The people around him were going to get beat. And the reason why we look at the Edmund Pettus Bridge and situations of the like and say that is awful and things should change and everything like that is because he knew that he was going to show up at that moment and a lot of people were going to get beat and it was going to become a story. And that's, I think that the people who are going out right now, the vast majority of the people who are protesting right now, right, are not on the extremist side where they want to see police officers shot. They don't want the property damage. They don't want all the things that are associated with the worst sides of the rioting and stuff or the protests. I think most people, 90% of people, want real change without the violence associated with it.
And that's where you get lost. That's where you get lost because the only reason, listen, I respect John Lewis and everything that he did and Martin Luther King leading the movement. That's great. They made great sacrifices and great strides. But the reason we look at Edmund Pettus Bridge as a turning point isn't because of what happened there. It's a turning point because of other things that were happening that you don't study in history classes in elementary or middle or high school or even college. You have to go out and find the information about people, white people, black people who are willing to go out and terrorize sheriffs in the South, that were burning down police stations, that were attacking sheriffs when they could get them by themselves. There was a rash. There's a show on HBO, The Watchmen.
Yeah.
The Open to the Watchmen is based on a real story about there was a rash of people who would find sheriff's deputies in their cars by themselves and assassinate them. And the reason that Edmund Pettus became the Edmund Pettus Bridge incident is because basically they riled up these sheriffs enough to say, hey, whoa, we're not going to take this anymore. There has to be a violent side of the movement because real social change doesn't come without it. Because when the majority says we should do something different, but doesn't do anything for 400 years. In 1960, it had been 350 years of the same thing.
Yeah.
Fighting against slavery, fighting against Jim Crow. Nothing changed. But when finally people took up arms and said, we are going to terrorize these people back, then the center shifts. And someone like yourself, someone like myself, arguably, says, well, we don't want this violence. So I like this guy. I like this guy who wants the same thing but isn't willing to kill people over it. When the political center shifts, change happens. That is all of the theory. I wrote a damn book about this.
Yeah, but here's the problem, and then we'll move on because we're really
way over time.
We're really going long. I understand where you're coming from, and I would argue that if you had the opportunity to ask Dr. King if violence helped.
I don't want to ask Dr.
No,
King.
but I'm saying like even if you took a peaceful person,
yes,
and asked them, did the violence in some way help your thing?
Yes.
They could acknowledge ways in which it did.
They would have to because the historical record would be replete without them.
Right. But at the same time, I'm going to say that this is why violence does not make a lot of sense in this situation, because the nonviolent ones are going to be the ones who, for the most part, are at the table negotiating what actually happens.
As they should.
It's the Dr. Kings who are not going out there and doing the violence.
You don't want me
which will be
negotiating.
more
I'm going to
likely-
start saying, let's put them all up on the guillotine, and when all of these folks are gone, then I'll negotiate with who's left. You need Dr. King to go up there and be like, all right, listen, I know you've been beating us for the last 6 years, but I'm willing to come to a peace with you.
You don't want the junkyard dog to come out here. Like, you'd rather negotiate with me than negotiate with him. I get all that, but I'm saying, like, to me,
there's a guy back here who's going to break in your house and tie your family to the couch and burn the house down around you so that you can watch them die first. You don't want that guy out here. You want Dr. King out here who's going to make peace with you.
Yeah. All right. So I'm glad that wasn't.
Well, before we transition away, let me just say, it's just me. It's not. You're not on the screen. It's just me. I said 6 years ago when the events in Ferguson happened, and I seem to say it every single time. When you put your knee on a man's neck and you watch him slowly die over 9 minutes, when you're going to shoot someone in the back, when you want to claim blue lives are a thing, you're all wrapped up together. And these two sheriffs who sat in a car may have never done anything bad. But when you wear the gang colors, you get treated like a member of the gang. And it's only going to take so long. I said it was going to happen in 2012. Didn't happen then. Then in 2014, I said it was going to happen.
It's happened 3 times, basically.
It has happened 3 times. And when it happened...
In New York, cops got shot in their cruiser.
Yep.
There was... how many officers in Dallas that were shot at in a crowd or something like that? I can't remember
also
exactly.
happened in Nevada, 2 cops going into a burger joint of some variety. It's happened here. There have been isolated incidents.
The fact that we can remember the 4 or 5 times that it happened as opposed to the 1,000 people a year who get killed by the police. But
it is going to continue, and again, I'll take Corey off. It absolutely should continue to happen. You cannot meet violence with nonviolence. It is... no change will happen. Again, I refer you to the fact we are still fighting the same battle. 1619, 2020, 401 years of fighting the same thing for equality, and nothing has changed. If you go to South Alabama today, you will not know that there is anything like equality, anything in the world. It looks exactly the same as it did under Jim Crow. People act exactly the way that they did when slavery was in effect. Drastic problems call for drastic solutions. It's going to continue to happen. And if you are so upset about police getting shot, if you're upset about ambushes, start getting upset when the police are ambushing someone, when the police are kneeling on someone's neck for 9 minutes and killing them, when they shoot someone in the back without cause, get upset about that. Because if you're looking for the cause of why this happened, that is it. Let's go to the but for. But for you continuing to murder people of color.
Hold on. This
what?
It's not. It's so like somebody. Nobody out there deserves violence for no reason. That is.
It's not no reason.
It's separating us from any chance of a reasonable society on the other side. That's the problem.
And this is where you're flawed. You think there is a chance at a reasonable society. Your complaint earlier was that there are pussies out here. They're given too much. They don't demand what they need to be taken. And now you're going to denigrate this person who said, I'm sick and tired of it. I'm taking what's mine. You are wearing the gang colors, and I'm going to go take it
committing a
out.
felony. I mean, like,
committing a felony.
When you're
what happened to George Floyd? What happened to Tamir Rice? What happened to George? What happened to any of these people?
In my mind, all those cops committed crimes too.
Yes.
And to varying degrees of problems with the legal system and how difficult it is to prosecute cops have led to none of them being prosecuted. Or to this point. I mean, like, we still have George Floyd, like,
by the way,
sitting out there. But I'm saying, like,
they don't have money for masks. They don't have money to help with any sort of corona response. But they've already spent $100,000 on a manhunt for one person for this shooting. Mm-hmm. You don't matter. Are you a cop? Or do you wear the badge and wear the blue? Then you don't fucking matter. So fuck them. They're a fucking gang. When you act like a gang, you get treated like a gang. When you roll up on my corner wearing your colors, watch your back.
Just between the pandemic and the fires and the Civil War, I just feel like I can't get enough of this country. Like, why?
Well, I see that's the thing. We don't have a civil war yet. We just need to have ourselves a civil war.
It didn't work. It didn't work.
Sure it did.
No, it didn't.
You settle out all the issues, and then you break.
Oh, my God. It didn't work. We spent 100 years trying to fucking put this whole thing back together. It didn't work.
It didn't work because in 1876, a political deal was struck to end Reconstruction. If they had not prematurely ended Reconstruction in 1876, someone in Mississippi in 1868 had more rights than someone in Mississippi in 1968. Because during Reconstruction, people were flourishing. But the end of Reconstruction in 1876 meant the end for any hope, the return of Jim Crow, and that was made because of a political deal to put Benjamin Harrison in the White House. Fact check me on that.
All right.
That is absolutely true.
All right, we spent way too much time talking about that, so let's move on to the next topic.
Okay.
Yay.
What's up next?
Oh, God, more Trump. Let's just skip all this. We talked about most of this. Do you want to just throw in a couple?
No, go ahead. You have your actor Chad thing.
My acting Chad, yeah. Acting Homeland Security, acting Chad Wolf, was recently got in a little bit of trouble because he's been talking about election interference from China. He's been talking about election interference from who else was there? Ukraine was involved in some election interference, they said, or so they claimed.
Yes.
I think.
Iran.
North
Korea.
Yeah, all of them. But
Russia.
Conveniently left out Russia.
Oh. Okay.
So a lot of people are just like, oh, so Russia's not doing anything? And he's just like, oh, no, it was left out. And it's like, you can't do that, Chad. You can't, not allowed.
I mean, Jim can't. He can do it. He can do it. Trump asked him to do
it. So anyway, that's going to become a thing. So we have that to look forward to on top of all the other war on the streets that we're... It's happening 6 feet away from me.
Oh, that I'm advocating for? Oh, yeah, I guess that's right. Let's see. What else? Where are we at on the agenda here? Oh, wait. Yes. Okay.
Trump.
Hang on.
Susan Collins.
I got that. Let me pull up all of my stuff here. Hang on. Okay. All right. Sorry, I got all flustered. I got all worked up and revolutionary. It's like, all right, look, I promise no political talk tonight. And then like 60 minutes later, and it's like, down with the bourgeoisie, raise the guillotines, let's murder all of the capitalists. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, so 3 big stories this week. As you can see, the image on my
an amalgam of Trumpy
my
things.
left, yes. So quickly through. Susan Collins, accurately portrayed as a woman in a mouse costume in Our Cartoon President, which I highly recommend, has said she doesn't know who she's voting for. Which is not surprising, or shouldn't be surprising, since she didn't vote for impeachment. She has seemingly backed Trump most votes, despite leading up to those votes saying how much she was ashamed and she would never back such a thing, and then switching and voting in support of Trump. Also, you can see a little rat right there by the name of Jared Kushner, who we mentioned earlier. If you live in a Baltimore apartment and you have rats, It's probably a Jared Kushner property, awkward enough. So he is now the primary and mainly the sole advisor to the president. It has been reported that he has basically created, he's boxed out. Who is it that you always do the impression of when you're like doing the boxing out? Like
Roberto keeping me from getting to a fire?
Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It's Roberto stopping you from putting out the fire in the kitchen that occurred a few weeks ago. But
Fire!
he's basically done that to all the other advisors, and some of them have quit. And now it's just him. A man with zero political experience and zero spine is now the main advisor, and some say the sole advisor to the president. So that's okay. Yeah. And then finally...
Well, he married into it, too, which is always...
Yeah. It's not even merit. He didn't even merit the position. Just married into it.
Meanwhile, Stephen Miller lives in relative obscurity. So...
Yeah. Do you think he's just somewhere casting a spell? Just in a basement somewhere? Like, turning it... Like, I am Newt.
A witch's brew.
Frog's wart. Just trying to figure out how to get Jared out of there. And finally, Portland, by the way, still happening.
Yeah.
Every single night. We're at like 109 nights or 110 nights now.
Yeah.
But the Proud Boys decided to show up over the weekend. If you're not aware who the Proud Boys are, it's a bunch of guys who look a lot like us but don't talk like us. Although some of them
they kind of talk like Rob, only the opposite side of the spectrum from Rob.
Actually, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
If I was, a neo-Nazi, if I said things like the Jews will not replace us, that's one of their popular chants. Well, they showed up in Portland because Portland's not enough of a dumpster fire yet.
Why not? Let's just throw more in there. Let's just make this the center of everything that's going to show down because
let's do it. Yeah, listen, Charleston, South Carolina was the site of the start of the first Civil War. Why not Portland, Oregon is the start of the second Civil War? But they decided to just show up and cause a bunch of trouble. And Antifa, which is just the citizens of Portland, were fighting against federal authorities and state authorities and city authorities. And a bunch of nosy white guys said, hey, you haven't heard from us yet. And so they showed up to cause trouble. They ended up chasing down. They would isolate an individual, chase them down and beat them. And then it was shown that the police were basically giving them water and assisting them after they had done so, despite the fact that a felony had been committed in their presence. So definitely shouldn't be shooting cops in Portland. That's definitely not something. So anyway, yeah.
The thoughts of Rob.
Yeah. Do we have to go back to the disclaimer?
Gotta bring that one back.
Is that happening? All right. Yeah, we should bring back the disclaimer just for your safety. But I'll just warn you, Corey, you're already on all the lists that I'm on. So
yeah.
Hooray. So you're COVID news. That's what we're
proxy. Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
So a couple weeks back, there was a motorcycle rally in Sturgis, the annual motorcycle rally there. For which is a huge annual event. I don't know if you've ever seen this small town in South Dakota or North Dakota. South Dakota.
Yep.
It goes from 10,000 people to 100,000 people overnight, and it's a huge boon for the economy. And apparently, the people of Sturgis didn't want it to go away because of coronavirus.
Some people in Sturgis didn't want it to go away.
So they had it, and a bunch of people showed up, including Smash Mouth, who said "fuck COVID" on stage during the course of the weekend.
I'm not going to say somebody should die of COVID, but if there is somebody, probably the lead singer of Smash Mouth. But
Steve Harrell.
Yes, whatever.
How the fuck do I know that? And
where did you pull that from? Good.
Ask me who's the president of some country, and I won't know it, but I'll know the lead singer of Smash Mouth for some reason.
Who's the president of Mexico right now? I thought you were going to go with Vicente Fox, which would be a safe bet. But
I knew I heard it at one point, and I'm pretty sure it has a double name.
You live with a Mexican.
I know, but I don't. Whatever. Anywho.
But you got Smash Mouth's lead singer.
I got that part. That's the important part. So if you look at the map to my side here, you will notice that a lot of people who attended the Sturgis rally went all over the country and brought coronavirus back because this was a super spreader event, as they're categorizing it. And this is the part that I found the most interesting. Estimated cost of all the people who got sick because of this event was over $2 billion. And I think the math that they had put that if everyone who was going to attend Sturgis was just given a check for like $35,000 and told to stay home, it would have had less impact on the economy than this did.
Yeah. More importantly, if I don't know, the federal government or the state had just said, "Hey, Sturgis,
don't do it."
You usually make $1.7 million on this event.
Yeah.
We're just going to give you $1.7 million to spread evenly amongst all of you. We would have saved money on the deal.
Oh, by a lot.
Yes. So we could have given them $1 billion and saved money on the deal.
Yeah. Incredible stuff.
Yeah.
And to that point, last night in Henderson, which is just outside of Las Vegas, Trump had a indoor rally where apparently masks didn't go on until the event started. Like the people behind Trump were told to put on masks like once he started speaking, which is not how the masks work. Like it's not. If at some point you wear the mask, it works. Like you have to constantly be wearing the mask.
Listen, Corey, Jesus gave me lungs to sing "God Bless America" with, but also he can keep them safe. So
yeah.
I don't have to worry about it.
At the same time, people of Las Vegas, Nevada, it's estimated that 20% of them are in some version of getting kicked out of their current housing situation. So in that same town, which is a stone's throw away from Vegas, like they're literally like right next to each other, basically.
It will be Vegas someday.
I mean, it's unbelievable to me that the Senate has been able to feel like they're getting away with this, because like, you know, I'm not working, I'm not making money, I'm making a paltry sum from unemployment, but that is not nearly the same as the expenses that I have. And at this point, it's work jobs that are going to underpay you and that are not going to be safe,
Risky, yeah.
so that you might get sick or you might make $100 or go into debt and hope that you can survive for long enough that you won't get kicked out of your house or your apartment or be able to eat, which are things that like a lot of people in America right now are dealing with. And the fact that I talk to people who are like who have jobs and who have their bills paid and they're not seeing the personal impact of this. Like a lot of people who have happened to be lucky enough to be in a position where they can work from home or something like that. Like, you know, it's like, well, I don't think this economy is so bad. Like right now, like, you don't, it's really on people hanging by twine, trying to fall off the cliff, keep from falling off the cliff. Like it's tenuously tight.
Well,
and
listen,
I at a certain point, I don't understand how the economy doesn't just flatten. Like,
I think what you're missing is you need to just go out and have a night out. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the pictures that I've been seeing on social media, but it's all over.
Yeah.
Just go out,
have fun,
a few drinks, hit up a restaurant, wear the mask in between stops while you're on the street, not in the restaurant or the bar where you're or 3
take
feet
pictures of you with the mask or without the mask, because how would anyone know you're smiling?
Yes. But also take pictures with the mask so they know you're being responsible.
Right.
Yeah. I don't. The economic consequences are one thing, but then also, I am still working. I'm going to work every day, despite the fact that I don't want to go to my office every day. I try to avoid when the office days when it's extra busy and I go in late or I come in early and then leave early, and then I have to worry about being in contact with people who just think it's done. And it's not done. But what I was going to say is that lucky for you, Mitch McConnell doesn't give a fuck about you, Corey, because the Senate has been on vacation all of August, as they normally do. They've been doing since 1800 or so. And they came back and there was a bill.
Yep.
And that bill failed.
Right.
Because it was a Democrat bill from the House, so that wasn't going to
No, that wasn't it. The McConnell put together a bill of his own.
Yes, that's right.
That was the $300.
They're not voting on the Democrat bill that came from the House.
No, half of the Republican caucus couldn't get behind spending more money and exploding the deficit.
Yeah.
Because when they do it for, you know, like people who own companies.
$1 trillion. $1 trillion.
Yeah. When they when they do it for the richest people, it's not exploding the deficit because that money will come back somehow.
Yeah.
Magic?
Trickle down economics.
Triple down magic.
You said magic. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
But when it's people who don't make a lot of money and it's fuck you.
Well, listen,
I just can't imagine, like, how many people in fucking Kentucky are in some version of losing their house, trying to figure out how to live off of ramen for another week.
Yep.
Borrowing any amount of money they can from any person they know to help make do.
The district
still make sure that their kids go to school, all of these things, and still say, like, fucking Mitch McConnell's going to figure this out for me. Like,
the district that Mitch was in the House from is the poorest district in the nation.
Yeah.
It is 98% white, and 90% of the people there get some sort of public benefits, from WIC to food stamps to Medicaid to something. And they overwhelmingly sent him to Congress. And then overwhelmingly were part of the vote to send him to the Senate, and continually send him to the Senate. And it makes no sense.
People voting against their own self-interest is like one of the most fascinating things in all of politics.
I read the book What's the Matter with Kansas when I was in high school, maybe middle school. And I was like, oh, this is definitely like a boomer I mean, we didn't say boomer then, but it was a boomer generation problem. We're going to fix this. And then I see Facebook, and I'm like, bro, you have 3 kids with 3 different women, all of whom are on some sort of public assistance. You're not working. You're getting some version of unemployment mixed with public benefits.
Yeah.
And you're just like unaware that somehow this is a welfare program provided to you by a Democrat, because if the Republicans had anything to say about it, you would be broke. And it's just like, well, if the Democrats would come to the table, we'd have a deal. And no.
The Democrats passed a bill.
The House that we have control of, we passed a bill.
I mean, like, listen, at a certain point, the problem is that Republicans, McConnell specifically, is looking for specific things that the Democrats won't give, and the Democrats are looking for specific things that the Republicans won't give. So,
wait,
we're going to be at this,
both are
at
trying
this
to give,
stalemate forever.
They're both trying to put money in the post office, which Trump won't sign because he will not give extra money to the post office.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
But on top of that, like, Pelosi wants people to be able to sue if they get sick.
Yes.
Or at least allow for the option to sue if they get sick. McConnell wants to take away any kind of exemption from, or like any kind of possible lawsuit from corporations that maybe don't do it correctly.
Yeah.
There is, the obvious difference between the amount of money per week, which I guess you could argue is going to be somewhere between $600 and $300 if there ever is a deal.
That is the least. They can come to a money difference. It's who else gets the money. That's going to be the big problem.
Yeah. I mean, like, they in a normal situation, if this was just about money, they'd say $450 and split it. Yeah. Well, to be honest, McConnell would say $300. Pelosi would talk to it with her caucus about it being $600, and then go, no, he's not going. We're just going to settle at $450, so I'm just going to say $450.
Yeah.
And then walk in and say $450, and he's like, no, $300.
Yeah. And they would settle at $375.
And then Pelosi turns and she's like, I did everything I could.
Do you want us to give them nothing, or should we give them $300 a week? Okay.
And then somebody just stands up, and it's just like, God, we're an alarming amount of pussies. We don't stand up for anything.
And next thing you know, Corey's talking about shooting cops on the podcast.
Pelosi, you're as bad as Newsom.
Yeah. So nothing's coming anytime soon. Hold on tight, folks. It's going to get worse. But make sure you're setting aside. If you are 30, you should be setting aside 1 times your annual income for retirement. And if you want to really secure yourself, 1 times your annual for retirement, and another 1 times for investment. That'll help you live richly in your retirement years, not just live securely in your retirement years.
And oh yeah, by the way, none of that's happening.
And just remember that your house will inevitably gain in value. You have that security.
I think,
or your parents' house will. So
I think that's the other thing. Like, I feel like people who are like the boomer generation kind of thing are just like, like, oh, I worked hard and I got to this point. Now I'm living good off of all the work I put in before. Mm-hmm. And they think like we're all just like lazy and not doing, like just living off whatever we're given kind of thing.
Why wouldn't you get 1 good job instead of 3 crappy jobs? Yeah. I mean, 3 crappy jobs is all we got. I don't know what you want from me, man. General Motors shut down. I can't get a Sparrows Point.
Can't buy a house for $20,000 anymore. So I don't know what to tell you about the situation.
Half of my income goes to the student loans to go to the college that you said you're going to be a failure as a child unless you go to college.
I also like all the colleges that are open right now because if they didn't open and take in tuition money, then they would go bankrupt.
Yes.
So
because they fronted themselves.
Fuck safety.
Listen, I would love to care about the safety.
By the way, you realize that this is an amazing fact, by the way. The opening week of students going back to Alabama, University of Alabama, there were more positive COVID cases at the University of Alabama than there were in the entire country of Canada.
Yep.
During that same time period.
Yeah.
Canada hasn't had a death in
6 weeks or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah,
it's been a long time.
They've for some reason, a country under almost the exact same circumstances as us has managed to figure it out without it being a huge financial tombstone for them.
Well, side note to that. What do you think would happen if in any other context we had a 9/11 every 3 days?
Yeah.
Because we are losing between 1,000 and 1,500 people a day. And as much celebrating as I saw, or remembrance, maybe, I don't know if you're going to call it celebrating, but about the 3,000 who died on this September 11th last Friday.
Yeah.
We're losing 1,000 to 1,500 a day. That's a 9/11 every 2 days. I'm going to start using that. That's going to be my reference. We lost 3/4 of a 9/11 today. We lost half a 9/11 today, a third of a 9/11 today. And maybe people will start saying, why are so many people dying? And maybe we should do something about that.
The other part, too, is obviously that not only it's not, to me, the worst part is not the people who get sick and might have long-term, long-ranging health implications from it. Like there was the
study about the hearts, right?
Yeah, like there was something about the football team or something like that where 3 members of the team had gotten COVID, and then they did an examination of their lungs and realized that like they basically took 20 years off their lungs. Yeah. Like they were the lungs of a 50-year-old man or something like that.
They couldn't figure out why. I want to say it was linemen because that's what occurs to me, but maybe that's because I was a lineman. But it was just like 3 of these guys are really dragging ass. What's going on? And they went in and did a full physical, and they're like, oh, yeah, 3 of your guys might as well be 45. They're not 22 anymore. They're at a very high risk for a myocardial infarction, which is a fancy way of saying a heart attack, but not really. The heart just can't keep a solid beat.
Yeah.
And, their lungs are damaged. So there's that. To everybody who's like, it's not that big a deal. You get over it. I think all 3 of those guys were asymptomatic carriers as well.
Yeah.
So it's not as if they went to the hospital and got ventilated. They just got sick and then got over it, and now they're fit.
Though there are people who are the most people who seem to be dealing with sort of long-term nagging things that come from it seem to be the ones who went to hospital, went on ventilator and stuff like that, which is
a ventilator
plainly
saves your
obvious
life,
to me, I guess.
but it does damage you.
Yeah.
So that will always and forever continue.
Just
to be
like
true.
when you see in the medical shows where they
you think
zap the person, like that's not good for you.
No, this is not.
It's not good to get electrocuted.
Dying worse.
But
dying is worse.
Yeah, I mean, and the choice between electrocuted and dying, I guess dying will have to wait another day.
Yeah, I got a DNR, so they're not going to bring me back.
One last thing. Let's skip most of the end here.
Okay, go
we're
ahead.
So long, and just focus on the Oscars.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go to the NFL. I thought you were going to say that was the most important thing.
No, I mean I can fit my NFL talks into like 10 seconds.
Okay, well, yeah. Let's play that for your consideration. Oh, yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Ooh, but yeah. So big changes to the qualifications for the Best Picture in the Oscars. Starting in 2024, but they're going to start doing the paperwork for it earlier.
Yeah.
Right now, if you want to be considered for an Academy Award, you have to fill out a bunch of paperwork. And
here's the
part
hard
of that
thing.
paperwork
The reason it has to be 2024 is there would be no Best Picture nominees this year.
Wow. I mean, there's really not a lot of movies that...
Yeah. And
part of the idea is like you have to give the studios time to make movies that would be part of that... And you know what? I'll say this. I think that in spirit, much like the Academy has in spirit tried to do good things here in the past, is trying to look out for a better Hollywood of tomorrow. But there's a lot of similarity I see between this and the Rooney Rule in the NFL.
Yeah.
Where it was like, you're not allowed to hire, you can hire a white coach, but you have to at least interview a black coach. You can't just, and I think they made up like rules like, well, if you're going to hire the offensive coordinator, there's no reason to bring in somebody just to have like a token interview.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
If you know you're going from one person in your organization to another, there's an exemption there.
But
like,
if you're going to hire an offensive coordinator, you should bring in a diverse crowd to replace him and do those interviews. So yeah.
But basically, what this became was, for a while, and we could still argue it's still kind of happening in this way, where it was like, Romeo Crennel gets brought in to interview for every single head coaching opportunity, and he's never going to get any of those jobs.
I think he was rumored to be the new coach at like 18 teams because they're like, oh, they brought him in. They're definitely he's going to get his chance this time.
Well, Hugh Jackson, I think, was the same way for a while. He was like, he was a hot coordinator with the Ravens, like doing great things. Then all of a sudden they're just like, oh, he seems like he would be a head coach one day. So why not just bring him in, have the interview, and then knock out the Rooney Rule? Like we brought in our black applicant. There are a lot of, I will say, from my experience working on sets, I see it differently, I think, than people on the higher end, on the more established set kind of level do. And I don't know if it's this generation is coming up and it's going to be like this on the studio side soon enough, or if it's going to just be, always like kind of an indie problem as opposed to a studio thing. But all the sets I work on are incredibly diverse.
Yeah.
Like I really do think that if we're talking about like male to female directors, I feel like it's almost 50-50, at least in the jobs that I work. I've worked with, department heads who were I've literally worked with every single different combination of race, gender, ethnicity, sexual preference. Like there's nobody on set that I feel like the only one I haven't experienced is like American Indian Eskimo. Like that's a rare find.
Yeah.
But like, or Samoan, like the lower number ethnic groups.
Wait, what about that? You weren't on that rock picture from earlier this year?
No.
Is he Samoan? Yeah, he's Samoan, right? Yeah,
he is a part Samoan. Yeah. So we can.
By the way, you're gonna get a little bit of that too, where it's like, oh no. Her great grandfather was half black. Yeah. So I mean, diversity.
She counts, right?
Diversity. Yeah. Right.
I mean, and I think a lot of people jumped immediately to the well, what if you're telling a story that doesn't have black people in it? Like, if you're doing 1917,
real hard
to figure out how to put a black supporting character in there to get it. But there's also a lot of behind the scenes stuff that allows you to avoid that problem. So basically, just running through it real quick.
Yeah.
To meet the on-screen representation standard, a film must either have at least one character or a significant supporting character be from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. At least 30% of secondary roles must be two underrepresented groups, or the main storyline and theme and narratives must be focused on an underrepresented group. So, like that's mostly for talking about what the movie is going to be about and who the actors are in it. So a lot more work will go to actors of color for this specific point.
Right. Yeah.
But again, going on the 1917 example, you might not be able to make the movie you want to make might not necessarily be about people of color or their struggle. So on the other side of it is the creative leadership and crew composition of a film. In order to meet the standard, a movie must have either at least two leadership professionals or department heads be from underrepresented groups, and at least one be from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. At least 6 other crew be from underrepresented racial or ethnic groups, or at least 30% of the film's crew be from an underrepresented group. One I think is going to be easier.
I was going to say, you said underrepresented group a lot. And just to be clear, it's women, people of color, people who identify as LGBTQ2, which I'm not sure what Q2 is, but Q2 plus.
Yeah.
Or people with disabilities. So I think you're right that there's going to be a lot of focus on, if you want to make 1917, okay, we just got to fill our crew with people who meet the quota. The problem, though, is, and I'll point out two of my thoughts about this. One, when you say 30% of the crew,
Yeah.
I can guarantee you're going to hit 30%, you're going to stop. Whereas before it's like, let's just find who we can find, and maybe it fills 45. Now, it hasn't traditionally filled 45, 55, 65%. But when you hit 30, you're going to stop.
See, I worry that people will come to, because usually, like, you know, producers, on-set producers, line producers, these are some of the people who help find the crew that like works with the, like, so I imagine there's going to be a lot of people who sort of get brought a package per se, where it's just like, hey,
I got my 30. I got your 30.
We have David
here.
Fincher and Ben Affleck and Roger Deakins all signed up. And Deakins comes with his 8 people.
Yeah.
And they're all from Britain. So there's part of your crew. Find as many black people as you can, or as many women as you can find, and fill up the rest of the crew. And then you're going to leave somebody who's going like, you know, like, all right, who are all the black sound mixers who are worth a damn? Like, you know, you're just basically, at some point you're going to that. And I'm not saying that's not, you know, like, I don't care. As the white sound mixer, I don't care if more diversity comes into our world. Yeah, it's very much needed. The one thing that I worry about, and this is not a slight on like the sound mixing community or anything like that, I just think it's just sort of how it happens in a way. But like, I would go to sound events and, you know, there's a handful of black people there, or a handful of women. Like, you know, underrepresented classes in sound specifically is kind of hard, because there are, you know, don't get me wrong, very talented people. Yeah, but like, it's just like
a fraction of the.
It's
overall.
One of those like, there used to be a thing about like hockey wanted to get more color in it, right? I think in the 80s they did the thing of like, how do we get more representation in hockey?
Mighty Ducks, by the way.
Well,
I think
that was one of the things that was sort of like, maybe movies would help or something like that. But like, one of the things they came to was just like, you know, you can you know, do hockey. You can show hockey to people who otherwise wouldn't play it, but I think there's also you kind of have to grow up in hockey to want to play it. So it's more likely to happen from the families who play it for a long time. Like, you're more likely to play it if your dad played it. Yeah. And the problem of getting more integration into hockey is not just show it to them and they'll start playing it. It's you got to get them in. You got to make them fans. You got to spend 40 years developing them.
And then their kids
might do it. And then they were just like, well, that's too much to ask. Like, let's just hope they find it on their own.
Yeah. Also, by the way, we have to invest in youth hockey programs for 40 years, because it's the dad who would never have found hockey otherwise. I will say most of the people I know who like hockey, Corey included, played hockey at some point. So it's hard to be, not that it's hard to be a fan of that sport, but I think you get a lot more fans of that sport from people who have played it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I'm sure there's other worlds like this, you know, like NASCAR. I haven't traditionally seen a lot of black faces, or women, but every once in a while you do. And it doesn't seem like they're not there because they're not welcome. It's like, just
not a lot of them.
It just, for whatever reason, a lot of people just don't want to, like, it just seems like the people who it sparks the imagination of are largely white men.
Yeah, well, more than that, though, hockey has this in common with NASCAR. It's an expensive sport to play.
Oh, yeah.
And if you are not from a suburban family with 2 incomes who can say, yeah, we're going to buy you a sprint car, or let you build a sprint car in the...
Well, I mean, like, if you talk about some of the poorest countries in the world, like, soccer is really popular because all it requires is a ball.
And not even
like,
a soccer ball. Anything
like, any
round
ball
that rolls.
Any ball can work. You don't need the cleats. You don't need... You can literally play without anything else if you need to.
Yep.
Baseball, I remember Melvin Mora had the cardboard to leather charity that he worked with. And he was like, he was from Venezuela, I think. I'm not 100% on that.
No, I think that's right, though, yeah.
But he said, like, you know, there's a lot of kids in my town where I grew up that would love to play baseball, but the cost of $5 in which to get them a glove is too much for almost every family. Yep. So please donate $5 so I can buy each kid a glove. Like, and he would do that. He would send equipment down to his hometown, and a bunch of kids there would play baseball.
But again, baseball, every kid needs a glove. Soccer, the town has to come together to put together $5
for one ball.
It is a very easy. And I mean, again, it's you're not cleats. There's no uniforms. There's no shin pads.
The field doesn't need to be even and regular. Like,
not that I am a soccer lover, but I played youth soccer growing up. The years before that, it literally was like any two objects, put them about 10 feet apart.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to catch it. Kick it, we'll chase it down.
Oh, the amount of times we played any sport with 2 trash cans being the goal. Like,
yeah. I mean, and soccer
street
is
hockey
the
or something like
one.
that.
Yeah. Even street hockey, you have the sticks, you have the ball or the puck or whatever.
Yeah.
And even if you play it on your feet, soccer literally is like grab 2 things
and a ball.
and the ball, a ball of some variety.
Yeah.
Or 4, I guess 4, because you need 2 goals, right? So
I mean, basketball is a similar situation where it doesn't take a lot you need to find a court somewhere, which can be easy enough for some people, but
peach basket
for other.
Peach basket on the wall, any kind of ball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how it started. But getting back to the Oscars, though, I have concerns that there's going to always be a problem with hitting the quota. And that one of the things I thought you were going to say there was about packaging so much as like somebody coming in and being like, oh, how many do you need? Total crew of 100. I have my 15 package, my 30 package, my 45 package, and I bring those same people to set. And it's uplifting for some, but it's not lifting up for everyone.
See, where I think this is really going to, because I really do think it would be easy enough for most reasonable productions to do the second category. But I'm pretty sure by 2024 they said they want 2 of 3 to be met. And if you are of the black marketing, if you are a black marketer right now who wants to work in movies, now is the time to get your business up in tip-top shape, because there are going to be a lot of... This is the one I can absolutely 100% see from a million miles away, which is you make a movie, you have a diverse crew, and maybe a diverse cast to a certain extent, but you maybe only knock out one of the 2... you got the crew, but you didn't get
you got like 3 or 4 there?
cast.
Yeah.
And now you got a really promising movie that looks like it's going to be good, and you got to start promoting it. So you got to find the blackest marketing team in the country to put together your marketing, because you're in the situation where you ain't going to get that Oscar nom unless you have what is the third category, which is paid internship, apprenticeship opportunities, as well as training for below-the-line workers, and the fourth category addressing the representation and marketing, publicity, and distribution teams.
Yeah.
I do think that is where you're going to see the most
boom, if you will. Yeah.
Token hiring, I guess, if you want to put it like in that way. It's upsetting because, like I'm seeing there is certainly a lack of representation on camera. For whatever reason, there still seems to be a divide between people, for the most part, between what type of story. I think there's still people who like see a black face on the poster and say like, oh, is this one of those black movies?
Right.
Like it's going to be a Tyler Perry affair because you have one black face on the poster.
Yeah.
And not that that's a bad thing. I'm just sort of making a generalization from a rube who sees the poster, But like I really do think, Hollywood is filled with people who want to do good. They want to do the best they can. They also want to make as much money as possible.
Yeah.
So traditionally it wasn't worth it to them to pay anybody more than anyone. Like, if you could put a crew together of the cheapest people you could and they were all good, then that was basically the end of the day for most people.
Yeah.
I think that it was probably going to work without the Academy having to strong arm a rule in there.
I think it will happen faster, because you're right that our generation, when they are running studios, will have much more diverse studios. But as long as it's not us running it, it'll always be hitting a wall. The Academy forcing them is saying, hey, if you want to have an Oscar contender, now they will abide by the rule as strictly as possible.
Yeah.
And 30% means 30% or whatever. They'll abide, but that starts moving people upwards as long as we don't fall into those holes.
What worries me, the one thing that really worries me is that someone is on the line with their qualifications. Like they say 30%. So let's say literally 30 people of a 100-person crew are of some sort of underrepresented class, right?
Yeah.
And then it's movie A. It's the favorite to win the Oscar this year. Movie A has everything going for it, but it's got that 30% on the number thing that's going on. I imagine movie B, which isn't the favorite, but in the contention, might start leaking things to the Hollywood press going like, they were on 30, just on the nose. Like,
opposition
they specifically
research.
went into this whole process to say we're only going to do 30 because that's all we're required to do. Meanwhile, here at Picture B, it's 50% underrepresented classes here because we care so much.
We hired the best.
Yeah.
And we found 50% of the best people.
And Picture A, 1917, is just filled with white people. But we have,
Green Book. It's such a diverse cast.
We have Mahershala Ali in this movie. I don't know if you've seen it. But
well, and that was going to be my second point, which is, frankly, and I think this works in its favor, I'm done seeing white guys die in Europe. We've had a lot of World War I, World War II, interwar, roaring 20s, or down 30. I'm done with that. There is a story from the Civil War where a slave escapes, steals a Confederate ship, goes out, and on his way through the blockade, actually a bunch of them, he gets the lightest skinned guy he can find to put on a Confederate jacket, and then goes and sweeps the front of the boat, shouts out to the Confederates on the other boats like, "Yes, so we's cleaning the boat." And then the guy in the boathouse is like, "Don't be talking to them boys," and escapes and gets out.
Yeah.
And then goes back 3 or 4 more times to fill his boat with runaway slaves and come back out, and uses the same ruse of light-skinned guy on the boat, him sweeping the front, acting like everything that the Confederates would think that a mouthy slave would act like. Then goes back after 1965. In 1966, is elected to Congress, becomes the first black congressman from that district.
Yeah.
Where is that dude's movie?
Right.
I want to see that movie. And by the way, that is a 90% people of color movie. Maybe it's time to stop thinking about World War I, World War II, the 20s, the 30s. If we're going to tell the story of Martin Luther King, we somehow have to have Johnson and 40 fucking white people in that story.
See, but so I know the story you're talking about.
Yes.
I can't remember the guy.
Yes.
But I remember after seeing that and seeing the meme of like, why hasn't this been made a movie? I looked it up, and that story has been tried 4 or 5 times.
It's in development turnaround a lot.
And it's one of those, they've never been able to find the right combination of things to make it go. And that's the problem with a lot of things. And like, hypothetically, there is a world where I could call up like my dad and be like, "Hey, good news. Ben Affleck's production company is thinking about making my movie."
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, "Oh my God, you've made it. Ben Affleck is like," and I'm just like thinking about making the movie, might purchase it, don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those like on a Monday it could be a go, and on a Tuesday it could be sorry, we can't do it at this time. And it happens that quick. And it's not like, again, like Hollywood is filled with, for the most part, progressive people who want to do right and do things, like want to be seen as inclusive and everything like that. Like, it's just built within these people who have passionate artistic brains in them, like it's understood. But at the other side of this, it's the like in their mind, there's only so many black directors who have had success.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't get Spike Lee, or we don't get, Black Panther.
Yep. Just trying to think of his name and out of my head.
Yeah.
Black Panther's director.
But I still remember
Ryan Coogler.
Ryan Coogler. There we go.
Yeah.
Like in their mind, they're just like, well, those are the only black directors that make money. So how can we buy?
Is
if Ava DuVernay or Ryan Coogler or Spike Lee doesn't direct this thing, then who else could possibly do?
Yeah.
Who else could make this movie and make money? And it's like people forget that like Ryan Coogler at one point was nobody, and he made a movie and it made money and it was good.
Yes.
And like, you have to the part of this that will be hard for Hollywood is the how do we jump the line part of it. Like I don't want to sink $80 million into this first time black director's work, because what if it's not good? What if we don't make our money back? Like, and then the other thing that was like all over the place for a while was we don't want to give more black directors shots because we don't want them to fail and then make it look like
bad for other.
We don't care
directors.
about
like yeah.
There was like any racist, like I always think the racism that is rampant in Hollywood is the worried about being the racism that comes from being worried about racism too much.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that. But so that the story about the slave who escaped.
Yeah.
Reading up on that at one point, and I want to say it was Phantom Thread. It was in development or turnaround at the same time that Phantom Thread was coming in.
Yeah.
And essentially what they said is what they would later say about the Harriet movie that was up for one Oscar for Best Actress.
Song. Oh, Arriva was nominated too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so too. But didn't get nominated for Best Picture. But I think the part of the thing of the story that I read was that they basically said, oh, well, we got Phantom Thread. That is our Oscar contender. So we really want this to be more of a producing movie. So if that's the case, and now it's 2024, and you have Phantom Thread and slave escapes on a ship that's your Oscar contender.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you say, well, Daniel Day-Lewis is really talented, but there's a lot of white people in this movie, and it's going to be a struggle to hit the 2024 rule versus this is going to be easy to hit. Does that get more focus, and is it less easily cut? Because you said we have Daniel Day-Lewis versus this movie that might be more difficult. Let's go with Phantom Thread, and we'll put this back in development. Maybe you go the other way.
See, I still think it goes the way of the proven commodity versus the hypothetically.
So you make Phantom Thread, which didn't make its money back.
No, but I'm saying
but it can't get an Oscar nom because it doesn't.
Say hypothetically, Phantom Thread has enough of the behind the scenes category to make itself eligible.
Okay.
As opposed to the other movie that you have that might possibly be an Oscar contender that has all three or all four of these things locked
Bangs
up.
all
right.
the check boxes.
Yeah.
Because it's a movie about an escaped slave.
100% like compliant movie or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You still are probably, and I'm assuming, maybe not as much of a known quantities going on in the slave movie.
I would put Mahershala Ali in
but I'm
general. And now what's the difference?
But I'm saying the difference between Paul Thomas Anderson and
Ryan
Coogler, for instance, right?
Sure.
I imagine in their mind they're going to say that we have both these movies. They're both great. The Paul Thomas Anderson one, though, is probably more likely to win awards. They'll probably do some sort of determination like he's won awards before or something. This is more likely to win an Academy Award based off of what we know the Academy likes or something
Fair
like
enough.
that. And then if it's a studio that is not well equipped to fund multiple campaigns because it costs a lot of money.
A lot. You got to back one, basically.
Yeah, you're going to have to, if it's not Disney, you're going to have to figure out which one you're backing. And I would imagine that there's still going to be a lot of push towards the known quantity aspect of it as opposed to the, and Coogler obviously is a known quantity too. That's not meant to minimize him. But I'm
not
saying,
for Oscar-nominated movies. Paul Thomas Anderson has a kind of a pedigree for that.
I mean, Coogler had Black Panther and things like that.
But that's not a traditionally Oscar-nominated movie, though.
The other thing too is that, honestly, and I really do feel this in my bones. They say that, this was an Oscar movie or this is an Oscar movie.
Let's stop doing that.
Green Book winning is the ultimate of the Oscar movies winning kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I do think that in the years since Green Book. The 1 year since Green Book, we had Moonlight before that. I sort of feel like Green Book was kind of an outlier.
Wait, you mean La La Land? They were the ones who won the Best
Moonlight.
Picture. No, it was La La Land. I remember. I watched the show. I turned it off immediately after they announced Best Picture. It was La La Land.
Surprise! It was actually Moonlight. And then A Parasite last year, which I really do think was a huge shift in the Oscars have in the last 3 years been desperately trying to push for more representation in the voting class because it was tremendously white before.
Yeah, they were the winners were white because the nominee or the voting class was also very much white.
Yeah. So I do think that at some point the picture B with Coogler, which might not maybe it's feels like an outside chance to win kind of thing, is going to win an Oscar in one of these situations, and we're going to be like, oh my God, everything we knew was wrong. But it's going to come 5 years after it could have, the same movie from the same directors and the same team could have won 5 years earlier, but in the mind of the executive who's thinking about the slate and which Oscar film that he's going to produce this year is going to say, like, that's still too much of a risk. In 5 years, perhaps, maybe that thing could win, but not this year. And and they're going to lose their window. Like, when baseball integrated, there was a lot of players who could have come in and been incredible Hall of Fame players, and any one of these teams could have had them. But
just didn't.
In their, right or wrong, Branch Rickey of the Dodgers said it has to be Jackie, because Jackie's the only one who is talented enough that fans will see and go like, oh, he's definitely deserving of being here, but he's also equipped to handle the
racial slurs
all
being shouted at you.
all the shit that goes along with it. So there were a lot of black players who were going to be the first and got passed over because they didn't have the special connection or the special combination of incredible talent and ability to handle it.
And the voice that sounded good on radio.
But I mean, like, it's just I don't know. I think it's overdue. I don't like how the Academy. The problem is the Academy always misses the opportunity when they force it through.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago when they did the popular Oscar.
Yeah.
Like, and then like everyone's just like, this is the worst idea ever. Like they could have hypothetically said, hey, we're thinking about doing a second event, like, like in the lead up to the Oscars, and we're going to give out a best popular movie. It's going to be a new thing. And like they could have figured out a way to present this that would have like people would have been like, okay, let's give it a try. Let's see what's up.
No, they said, we're the Oscars. We know best.
We know what's going
category.
on. And that's the same thing that I feel like is going, like, because anytime somebody comes in and they're like, new rule, it's just like, fuck the rule. We did fine without the rule. Why do we need the rule? Like,
who are you, Kirstie Alley now? I will say that one thing though, the Phantom Thread unknown picture B.
Yeah.
I think that maybe that argument changes in 2026 when we see if, much like you outlined, in 2024 or 5, you get that A versus B where they're like, they hit 30% and stopped. Because then maybe you're the executive and you're like, listen, Paul's got a whole crew he likes to work with, and I don't know if we're going to be able to we're going to have to make an effort to hit the rule. So maybe we wait.
Every traditionally December, January, start looking at Hollywood Reporter and then start seeing or Variety or any of these or Page Six and see how many stories are about something that happened with a movie that's nominated for an award.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, somebody on Phantom Thread broke their leg when they fell out a window. And that's supposed to scare the one person who's just like, that happened to me once. I'm not voting for that movie.
I can't vote for that.
It's just like the weird headlines of like, oh, by the way, did you know that the guy who wrote this movie is gay? And it's like, oh my God, how could I possibly look at my friends in the eye and vote for this movie?
He's a communist, Corey.
Yeah, like
right, he's a communist.
Back in the day, yeah.
And honestly, like I'm waiting for the listen, he was in a wheelchair during shooting because he broke his leg skiing a month before. Like he's not actually disabled. He had a broken leg, and you're like, oh, really? Are we?
Well, honestly, I know they say they weren't incredibly on point about like what disabled necessarily meant.
Yeah,
and I do wonder, while a lot of people have the mind that physically disabled is probably what they mean there. I would be curious to see if somebody like. Like I have ADHD. Do I qualify as disabled?
That is an interesting point.
It's I wouldn't ever use it as like a hey, you can hire me. I have ADHD. I fit the qualification. But like, does it count? I don't know. Like, if
you can get a prescription in California, does that make you disabled as far as a movie set goes?
Because there's a lot of people who would qualify under that. All right,
I have really bad anxiety.
We've spent way too long on this entire show.
What?
Especially in the middle.
No way.
So
what are you talking about?
I'm going to tell you to go to otheanthem.com, The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's the number again?
443-219-7595. You can go to my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/CoreyBakerFilm, and @LegendsCB5 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok until Trump bans it.
No, it got bought by Oracle. It's fine. Yeah.
We'll get into that more, too. Too much of a show, clearly. Working on new content, forever a problem. Not with Rob, you'll hear soon. But that's it from me.
Well, and Corey, if we cut out the middle, you would cut out the part where I actively advocated for the continuing war against police. I don't know why you would want to cut that part out.
Yeah.
But, anyway, if you'd like to hear more from me, You can find more at my website.
Why would you?
RobertandCheek.com. I'm doing a daily podcast. It's Rob Explains. You can find that on Anchor, on YouTube, although the videos are going to get a little more sparse as we get going. And of course, I have the Everyman Movie Review, 2 reviews a week. We just had, well, I don't know. There's a lot of I got American Pickle coming out. Vivarium came out recently. Assistant was on Sunday. That's the new one that's out. And American Pickle's coming out next week. So look for that. I'm working on new screenplays. I'm working on new books. I got a lot of stuff coming. RobertandCheek.com for all those links that you can always find that at.
Well, I think we've done good here today.
Wow, you're rushing out. Is it because you're hot, Corey? 'Cause
Yes.
You look a little sweaty.
Yeah.
If you hear that in the background, that's the AC that could not wait until we went left. Oh, yes.
It was either that or pass out on camera. So
I would take the
pick
latter.
your choice.
Yeah. We've done something. I don't know if it's good. But as always, you're listening to the Anthem podcast, part of the growing the Anthem digital network. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
Please don't listen to Rob. Bye.
Hey, didn't you send a girl a note like that at the bar at some point?